Walt Disney, arguably the most influential person in modern media and certainly the most accomplished and successful animator of all time, died shrouded in secrecy on the 15th of December in 1966. This came as a shock to the world, and many questions spurred on by rumors began to circulate. One still persists to this very day, the one we're exploring today in this episode. Did Walt Disney secretly orchestrate a procedure in which he would be frozen upon death, suspended in cryogenic ice, to be resurrected in the world of tomorrow? This is the Red Thread, coming at you with a pretty goofy story today. It's a unique one, let's say. Very, very goofy, I guess is the best way to put it. What do you think, Isaiah, broadly speaking, about this one?
I've seen it. I've been down. I don't know if you're from America, but actually when you're born in the United States, we have like a sort of like quinceañera. When you turn 15 years old, you go to Walt Disney's grave and they show you his head in there. It talks to you some too if you're lucky.
That was always the one I heard, so everyone's heard this one through just, it's in Family Guy. It's referenced all over the place.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
That's the one I've always heard, though, was that it was his head that was frozen in ice all those years ago.
Yeah, I've heard head, I've heard his whole body, I've heard it both ways sometimes, but yeah, generally him being frozen somewhere is a recurring theme, I would say. Yeah.
Did you believe it when you were told? Because it's always told as fact. Like people always talk about it as if it's a confirmed fact.
I don't know if. Okay, so I think I believed it. I used to hear he was cryogenically frozen, which is a thing some people do, right? That's
what we're going to explore in this episode. But it's a genuine thing. I was under the assumption that this was all made up science, essentially, like science fiction. But no,
you can get frozen.
They actually exist. Yeah,
they do exist.
They freeze you.
So I think I believe that part. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
When he died, he was frozen. Sure. But then I remember the detail of like, and it's hidden underneath Disney, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not true.
Why would it?
Why would they keep him there? Yeah.
That's always been my question as well. Like, why would they lie about this if it's so common now?
Also, if you had something...
Well, not common, but it happens.
Like that important and sacred, I guess, why put it in the place people would look for it? Like, what?
Because it's sentimental.
Yeah, that's like, I keep my bags of money in the bags of money box at my house. Like, why?
Maybe it's like the Matrix. Maybe they're using him as like a human battery to power the Disney.
That's how the animatronics work. They're like hooked up to his spine. Yeah,
it's very efficient. That's how they cut down their power bill. They're using the soul of Walt
There's
Disney.
So many of them out there. Statistically, one of them has to listen to the show. If you've ever worked as a Disney mascot, let us know if you had like a implant into your brainstem that ran through the suit. That's full of Walt Disney spinal juice. So
there has to be someone at Walt Disney that's not on the like executive team that like, a janitor or something that has to clean the cryogenic room every now and then who's seen Walt Disney's frozen body.
Has to be.
Yeah.
He's seen him.
We'll get them on the show.
Yeah,
I actually know someone who works at Disneyland. I'm surprised you don't, because I thought like they're one of the largest employees in the United States.
They are, but they're located in Florida and California. So if you're in Florida, especially, because like where Disney World is, I think it's World that's in Florida, I'm pretty sure. And like Universal Studios and all that, like Orlando is built around it nearly. So,
yeah, it's like theme park city. That entire city is like crazy with theme parks.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. So I think that if you're in those locations, it's more prevalent. But where I'm in like Tennessee, Louisiana and stuff, there's not a ton of it around. But I've certainly seen a ton of people online be like, I worked at Disney for X, Y. I mean, they have to employ tens of thousands of people at just the parks.
Yes, it's crazy. I've been to Disney World. I haven't been to Disneyland, but I've been to Disney World. the amount of infrastructure that it is like its own city. They've got 4 parks at Disney World, 4 different parks, so many different employees. It's they've got their own fire department, I believe, and emergency services.
They have their own like systems of communication. They have their own like everything they do at the park is like their thing. So like they have their own like so like the way the wires work, the way the tunnels work. You know about the tunnels, right? I'm sure we'll talk about
the underground
today.
tunnels, which we'll be talking about.
Yeah, like they have like the park is just as big underground. Like it's a super highway of like communication and stuff. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've also, as we now know, they've got their own cryonics department and team down there as well, slaving away over Walt's frozen body. Waiting for the day where they can resurrect him finally. Let's get all of our biases out there, Isaiah. Are you a Disney fan? A Disney adult?
No. I am not. I appreciate Disney in a nostalgic sense, because like obviously I grew up on a lot of like the Disney Pixar films and like the old animated movies and stuff like that. I appreciate all those, and I really appreciate the idea of like one like department becoming so many things, like stretching into animation and film and amusement parks and like so. It's
undeniably impressive what they've been able to do.
Yeah, and there's also like. There's an Americana sense to Walt himself a lot of the time about like regardless of how true it is. Yeah, the American dream, like making something that big out of nothing. And like it seems that throughout his entire life he had a very creative mind. He never fully sold over to like the corporate suit aspect of it, which I appreciate. So there's some elements of it I like, but in the modern age I can't think of a lot of them. I
think Walt is probably one of the most impressive creatives that has ever lived, which I find very obviously inspiring and interesting. He obviously, as you said, was more creatively minded, but I do think that he had a good sense for how to best use that and how to best adapt that in the American kind of world. And that takes a different, like a business sense to it. Obviously, he had a brother, Roy, who was very instrumental in that as well. But I think, it's undeniably impressive what Disney was able to accomplish. And a lot of that obviously is owed to Walt Disney. I personally, like you, I think of Disney more nostalgically. I hate them in the modern era. I think that's a pretty common feeling, how they've changed in the modern era, post 2000, they've become a very oppressive and anti-creative industry, I think. And while it's still impressive, like I went to Disney World and I went to Disney Sea in Japan, and it's very impressive what they're able to do on the parks front. I still think they're a very evil company in today's day and age. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
It's inevitable to happen when any company is that successful that becomes the standard. Like it will inevitably develop of all the problems of being the standard. But even beyond that, like they seem kind of creatively bankrupt in my opinion, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I certainly respect it for what it was. Like as a kid, I went to Disney World and it was magical. Like seeing like the giant, the castle and the rides and just like how well, especially at Disney World, everything is tailored to immerse you into the setting you're in. It really is impressive.
I mean, I went as an adult. I didn't even go as a kid. If I went as a kid, it would have blown my little Australian
when you're like
mind
9 years old walking through all that, it's like, whoa, yeah,
it would have been absolutely incredible. But going there as an adult, I was able to still kind of objectively appreciate, I guess, what do they call them? The Imagineers? I'm pretty sure they're called Imagineers, right? The Imagineers were able to accomplish using, design standards. Like they innovated basically upon the entire idea of a theme park, and it was incredible. Yeah, absolutely. I can see why those theme parks are as successful as they are. But like you, I don't think I've enjoyed Disney past like maybe 2005-ish. Like everything past that point is just kind of being soulless, I guess, in terms of what they create. I think, all right, WALL-E is my favorite Disney movie. What about you?
WALL-E's up there. If we're talking like the Pixar films, The Incredibles might be my favorite.
Incredibles is good, yeah.
Incredibles, or I like Finding Nemo a lot. But I'm trying to think, because like when you say like Disney animated films, that includes all the hand-drawn stuff. So you've got like Lion King.
It goes far back, 1940s.
Yeah, it goes way, way back. I'm trying to think if there was one above all else. For now, I'll say The Incredibles, unless something else comes to mind.
Incredibles, yeah.
I remember appreciating The Incredibles because when I was a kid, I was like, oh, it's like a movie made for me, but it's not talking down to me. Like, characters are dying. There's a real sense of weight to everything that's being said and stuff like that. Like, it still works really well as an adult. Is like a superhero movie, but it's like superheroes are out, so it's like an espionage and like coming back to, the glory days. So it's a great film, very good film.
Yeah, the best children's movies are the ones where the parents and the adults can watch it as well and still get something out of it, obviously. And that's why I like WALL-E so much. It tells a very mature.
Story. Actually, my favorite, I take it back, Ratatouille might be. I loved Ratatouille great, so much as a kid. So good.
What about it did you like?
Oh, the whole movie, but I remember just how it was about a kitchen in France, but it was so well done and put together that you felt like suspense, you felt turns. I remember as a kid loving that whole monologue by Egon at the end. And how it felt so it felt adult. Like I was a kid, but it was talking about as a critic, I will never be more than the work I entell, even the worst, whatever. Not everyone is a great chef, but a great chef can come from anyone. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting concept that feels like an obvious passion project from someone who had a story to tell, because who's going to go into a boardroom meeting where their goal is to come up with a children's movie and say it needs to be about a rat who works at a French restaurant, and it's such a unique concept. And
are the other people rats? No. It's one rat,
just one rat,
yeah.
And he's controlling a ginger man.
Yeah.
So first, I think the most important thing to do before we dive in deep about the conspiracies of the freezening, as I'm going to call it, we need to talk about Walt Disney a little bit, just so you understand him. So Walt was born on 5th of December, 1901 in Chicago. His family consisted of his parents, Elias and Flora Disney, as well as 4 older brothers and his young sister, Ruth. Pretty standard life from what I was able to read through growing up. He had a strong penchant for drawing, as you can imagine. He enjoyed drawing and creating a lot. There's a story about a neighborhood doctor asking Walt to draw his retired horse, and this was when Walt first discovered his love of drawing, and that continued throughout the years as he went to things like art school, obviously. And then he joined the army in 1918, but was rejected due to his age. He was only around 17 at the time. And he ended up forging his date of birth certificate and successfully getting through and working for the Red Cross as an ambulance driver. He continued to draw and would put his cartoons around the ambulance as a decoration, and he would also publish work in the military newspaper Stars and Stripes, which that's probably indicative of his strong love of country. And I think, like you said, Disney overall has this very American feel to it, I guess you could say. A lot of their parks, I remember going through their parks over in Disney World, and there's an entire section set up, an entire land set up to celebrate, America, basically. Yeah. It's basically America Street or the frontier and things like that. Walt obviously loved his country, and that shines through. Do you have anything to add to that? I don't really. Americana, right? The term's Americana.
Yeah, Americana. It kind of ties in a lot to the like you said, the American dream idea of I can't even, because he didn't grow up poor or anything, like he was from Kansas. I know that, so he was a middle American, but going from a low standard life to the legacy he reached. It was very Americana. He seemed to attribute a lot of that to the country. So a lot of that came through in his work, I feel, and a lot of his early stuff. One of his big things I remember was wanting the Hall of Presidents at Disney World, and what's his face? The guy on YouTube who covers theme parks. You know what I mean? Defunctland. Yeah, he did this whole video going into it, and he's done a bunch of stuff about Disney. But yeah, there was a real push for that, like the American history and the American side of things.
Yeah, and to go back to what you were saying just briefly, I think he was like you could probably say like a middle class family. Definitely not like he didn't come from like royalty or anything like that. Like his parents were forced to sell their farm pretty much due to the father's poor health in the 1910s or something. So they owned land, obviously, and they had a farm, but I don't think they would have sold if they were in a good position. So I think middle class is probably what I would use to describe them. And Walt himself showed like an extraordinarily strong work ethic. He was delivering papers from 4 a.m. Again, I don't think that would be the case if he came from a rich family, right? Like he had like jobs growing up where it's like, this is obviously a middle class family. And then he obviously went to art school. He got an apprenticeship position as an artist at the Pesman Rubin Commercial Art Studio at just age, I think 19 or 18, straight out of school, basically, during school. And that's where he kind of honed his skills. And then he formed the Walt Disney Company, which, it's obviously... It goes without saying, right, how instrumental the Disney Company is to the world's
it's a genre
kind of entertainment industry.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't think entertainment would be the same today if not for Disney.
Yeah, of course.
And it expands beyond just children's movies. Obviously, even now, or especially now, it's got multiple divisions across entertainment, parks, media networks, platforms. They even own like percentage stakes in like Epic Games and stuff like that. They're in everything.
You can go to any country in the world, any language, and say Disney, and they'll know what you mean.
Well, you know what's insane? They've got Disneyland in China. That's how massive. That's how massive the reach is of this American property. Even China's like inviting the mouse in. So there's no bigger accomplishment in terms of entertainment than that for Walt Disney. So I don't really feel like we need to talk about Disneyland or Disney too much because you guys already know what it is. But I will say during those early years, Walt Disney was obviously instrumental in creating an enormous amount of incredible pieces of art that stand the test of time. Steamboat Willie, the first Technicolor cartoon, which was Flowers and Trees, and the first full-length animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in 1937. Like, obviously, massive accomplishments. He created the genre
before
basically,
World War
said,
II. He created a full-length animated film. Yeah,
I mean, that's crazy. It's the first of its type, so obviously that's just massively impressive. So not going to spend too much time on that. Do you want to start reading about his death, though?
Yes. Yeah. So now the part that this episode's concerned about. So since he was a teenager in World War I, Walt Disney was a chain smoker and did not use filters because he was a real American, by God. This took a heavy toll on his body, and he was diagnosed with lung cancer at the beginning of November 1966. His left lung was removed that November.
I'm imagining to go back to what you were saying just a second ago. I'm imagining if Walt Disney was born in the like current era, what that would look like. Like he's at his art studio vaping.
Yep.
Like there is such a mental image of like.
I don't know. A lot of artists still chain smoke a lot. I think a lot of young New Yorkers.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think he would still be kind of cool. Have like one layer. At least he has to carry a ladder. He'd be one of those pretentious guys who carry a matchbook instead of a lighter.
Oh, dude, yeah. He lifts up his shoe and like strikes it along the bottom of his shoe.
Yeah. He only smokes like imports, like some weird. He won't just buy Marlboro or spirits. He'll smoke spirits. The cancer was treated with cobalt therapy, which uses gamma rays from a is that supposed to be radioisotope? Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Radioisotope cobalt-60 to kill tumor tissue. It was revolutionary at the time, and it has now been replaced with more modern technology like a linear accelerator, which produces high energy radiation without the radioactive waste. Even to this day, like you've got like cancer treatments still like kind of risky. So imagine what it was in 1966, like what they were blasting him full of.
Yeah, to be fair though, you've got cancer. I'll probably try anything at that point.
Oh no, I'm not saying he shouldn't have or whatever. I'm just saying that had to be threatening.
Oh yeah, it would have been. It would have been horrible.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Absolutely horrible. Do you know what cobalt therapy is?
I don't actually. I'm not familiar with. Well, it says that
cobalt is a
it uses gamma rays.
Cobalt itself
element, right?
is on it's on the elemental table, right?
Yeah.
So they're just blasting you with that.
Yeah, I think that. Well, they're probably using that to create radioactive waves.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, they're just using like the element of cobalt to create radiation effectively, and then like beaming it into your body. He spent the last weeks of his life at St. Joseph Hospital until the 15th of December, the same year he was diagnosed with cancer, when he died from circulatory collapse. Cardiac arrest was listed as the cause of death on his death certificate. He was 65 years old. I remember hearing in one of Defunctland's videos that in his final moments, he was laying in his deathbed, and they had been working on Epcot at the time,
Yes.
which wasn't. It was planned to be like its own city, like a place people live, go to school, go to church. Like he was effectively trying to build a city that like people entire lives would be.
Yeah, it was the experimental Epcot. Epcot is an acronym that stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that was like his life's work, basically.
Mhm.
Because as we'll come to understand, Walt Disney himself was a man that was just enamored by the prospect of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or future technology.
Yeah. He was really big about like, he liked Tomorrowland stuff like that, like the future, like new technology, new developments, things like that. His body was cremated days. Oh, what I was going to say about that, in his final moments, he was laying in his hospital room, and I think it was one of his sons. I think it was Walt Disney Jr. or someone came to see him, and he was laying in the hospital bed, and he was using the tiles of the hospital room as like a blueprint, and was talking to people about where he wanted stuff to be. Like, we'll put this there, we'll put that at that tile, we'll put that there. Like, he was still in his last moments plotting it out.
It's the saddest part to me. He was obviously, like I said, Epcot was his life's work. That was something that he really wanted to see through, and he made like you said, extremely detailed plans for his vision, and it was incredible. It was the plans which everyone has seen, like they exist. We know what his idea was. He also did like a television series before his death for many years, where he kind of walked people through the process of what he was thinking about and doing with the parks. Like, this is all detailed and documented, and his plans for it were, like you said, it was like a futuristic city where people could live and work in, and it would just be a utopia as he designed it. And a lot of those design principles actually made their way into how future cities would be built. So it's not like he was completely insane. He definitely aimed high. Like, there were a lot of things in Epcot, in his plans of Epcot, that were, unrealistic, let's say. But yeah, he was a dreamer. And I think that's the thing I admire most about him. He wasn't content with just living, a normal rich person's life. He was always looking for something grand to do next, and Epcot was his final one.
Yeah. So anyway, his body was cremated days later, and his ashes were buried in the Forest Lawn Memorial Park, privately owned cemetery in Glendale, California. Yeah. But that's just what they want you to think. That's what they want you to think, that his body's there under it. That's the fake one. See, like I said earlier, why would you put your money bags in the money bag box? Why would you put Walt Disney's body in the Walt Disney box, right?
Yeah, that's what they're expecting, the dead body to be in a cemetery of all places.
Exactly. Yep.
You got to think outside of the box if you're going to catch Walt Disney.
I bet right now, if you try to grave rob his body, you get hit with a Disney themed landmine. It's wired to blow.
It detracts money from your bank account.
Yep. If you throw the door open, you pull the wire on a grenade, but when the grenade falls, you can see it's in the shape of a Mickey Mouse.
Do you think you're gonna open up the grave if you eventually do grave rob Walt Disney and he's wearing Mickey Mouse ears and like Disney merchandise?
That's how I want to be rigged up. Yeah. But there's also
bury
like,
me in my Disney merch, please.
yes, but there's also like a bomb, like a grenade, so they can see me and be like, "What?" And then the Walt Disney themed grenade goes off. I think. Yeah. Now there's 2 bodies in the box. Joke's on you.
All right, Isaiah. What is the conspiracy surrounding Walt Disney?
The conspiracy is 1964. A book named "The Prospect of Immortality" by Robert C.W. Ettinger was released. Ettinger is often credited with popularizing the idea and concept of cryonics. Ettinger, a physics professor, discussed that freezing a human body immediately after death could possibly preserve them until future medical advancements are made that are capable of curing their ailments. Here's the insanity to that.
Yeah, what?
That the idea of freezing you after you're dead doesn't make any sense because you're just dead.
No, well, yeah, but the idea is eventually medicine will catch up when you're able to resurrect people.
No. Listen to me. If you die and then get frozen, even if they cure the thing that was killing you, you're dead.
Yeah, but they're talking about creating things that'll resurrect you, basically, eventually.
No. They're talking about curing uncurable diseases. Like cancer or something. They're saying that years later we could administer the cure. And that's fine if you free someone while they're alive.
Can you imagine how horrifying it would be to be frozen before you die?
Look, if you want to play ball, you have to get in the game. You got to be on the court, ready to go.
You also, in that situation, you also have to be absolutely confident you're about to die in the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're dying under the assumption.
5 minutes, because by that point, your systems are going to be so weak. It's like, yay, we cured your disease, but your heart is still 5 minutes from dying. Along with your circulatory system, you're not coming back from this. No,
but then in that situation, then you bring them back. And they're
all I'm saying is, if you're taking this for real, and you got to get frozen right now. Like you don't even have
right
anything
now.
Yet. Yeah, not
when I'm 27.
Yes, you don't even have anything yet, but you might. So you better get to a place where there's cures right now.
Plus, most people that die and are frozen, they're going to be like resurrected in their 90-year-old bodies. That's going to suck. You're in the future, but with a 90-year-old body.
You're in the future with a 90-year-old body that's dead. That's what you're not picking up. You're gone. They also have to find a way to magically resuscitate people if that was the case.
They're bringing people back to life. They're unfreezing them. I think they're going to have the technology to resurrect them.
No. When they're talking about freezing, you're effectively saying a long-term paralysis, like a coma. We can wake people up out of comas. Yeah. That makes sense. But there's a difference between coma and dead. Those are 2 different things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying...
What's going to happen is in 2060, they're going to unfreeze all these people and a bunch of bodies are going to fall out and they're going to be like, oh no, we may have cured their disease, but we didn't cure death. We forgot about that part.
I think in the future, if we've... they're not going to unfreeze people until they're sure that they can, resuscitate them. So the assumption is, I be freeze now or when I'm dead. I be freeze when I'm dead. Only ever wake me up if you're able to resurrect me. And at that point, what's the harm in freezing yourself? I actually
You're talking about a world where we just cure death.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, in that case.
I'm talking about that made up world. Yeah.
Okay.
Where it's possible to resurrect people.
Then if we can cure death? Why get frozen in the first place? Because I could just die and then wake up again. Over and over.
Well, no, the idea of cryonics, right, the principle is freezing the body so that it doesn't decompose. That's the entire idea.
So you're saying we cure death. Wait, hold on. You're saying we cure death before we cure cancer?
No, I mean, if they've got cancer and they died from cancer, you're probably still going to need to cure cancer when they come out of death, right? In the cryonic world.
So in that world, people will just keep dying and then being resurrected every day forever.
Over and over and over again.
99 years old. It's like, got another day in
dead,
me.
and then they're resurrected.
Yeah. So if I want to die, I have to go away from anyone so they don't find me.
I don't think it's a feasible idea, all right? I don't think we're ever going to cure the existential issue of death. So I think likely that these people
I think
are
we've
just
got a
going
bunch
to
of
be
bodies
frozen
on
forever.
ice somewhere and we can't do anything with them, but people keep paying money for it, so we keep taking them in.
I mean, to be fair, like it's a 0.001% chance of ever being successful. But when you're talking about permanent death, I mean, that 0.0001% chance becomes more attractive, right? Like, why not just take it at that point?
No,
Why not
I'm
freeze
sure
yourself?
I'm sure if I think about this long enough, I can develop a moral issue with it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. I'm actually interested in the idea of how like religious people think about this, because does it keep you from the afterlife?
No. I think there's nothing. Well, hold on. What are we talking about? Are we talking about this world where you are frozen and then you just like are resurrected every day forever? Because I'd say that would probably be a not good thing.
You show up to heaven and they drag you back in to your body. You're like, no, please, just let me go back. It was so good up there. Although could the argument then be made that we've made our world heaven because we've destroyed the idea of death, and this needs to now be our heaven?
I think if we destroyed the idea of, I think if death didn't exist, people would be far worse. Because without death, there's no merit by which life is judged, right?
True,
So,
yes, yeah.
It's
There's
just
no
like,
stakes to things anymore.
Yeah, there's no stakes to things. There's no purpose. There's no time. There's no...
Hedonism would take over entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, to abscond yourself of death, or the principle or the idea of death, is just to basically give in to hedonism, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what become that in a lot of suicides, if I had to imagine. Yeah, I don't think it would be a good thing. No, but to answer your question about like, is it religiously wrong? I don't think so. I mean, no sensible religious person has an issue with like medicine, right? So if you view this as like a medicine thing, sure. I just think it's kind of like humanistically a dumb idea, you know?
Why?
Because I think that if you view...
What I'm curious about is, do people keep having children at that point, and what happens to like the population if everyone doesn't die and we still keep creating?
Oh, I'm talking about cryogenics now.
Oh, okay.
About
yeah,
them.
continue.
I would say I don't think it's a good idea because I feel like, with exception, like if you're super young and get a dangerous illness, I would understand the need for it. But if like you're older and stuff, it's like there is a time where it's okay to pass on. Hopefully, like try to live your life in such a way to where the phases of your life are satisfied, to where in the end, what's that Emerson quote? Not when it comes time to die, find that I had not yet lived. Right. Like, I think the idea of being at the end of your life and begging for nothing but more time, sure, everyone wants more time, but like if you were to be frozen and then wake up 80 years later, that's not your world anymore. It's not the people you knew. It's not the circumstances you knew. You're being
well, unless they were
deposited
also
somewhere else.
frozen. Unless your wife and everyone you know was also frozen.
I mean, I guess.
If there was a social system, like
we're going
Medicare
to time
or whatever,
travel,
where everyone
guys.
gets
Come
frozen.
on, get in here. Yeah.
Like when do they wake us up eventually? Like yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the idea, it's such a complicated hypothetical to me, because on principle or on foundation, right, it sounds so good. Like it's hard to really argue against the idea of skipping death and then being reborn into a paradise or a world where they've cured all disease, or like they can bring people back to life, essentially, like we just said. So that sounds great, right? That has to be a paradise if we've made those kinds of technological innovations and leaps. So why would I not want to live there? Why would I not want to be frozen so that I eventually could be born or reborn in that world? So I don't know. I don't really have a moral issue with it. It kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just think it's I don't know. It seems anti-human to me when I think about it. I just don't like it. There's a yuck I get from it. The idea of like freezing yourself and coming out later. Yeah, I get the ick from it. Yeah.
Well, I like cold, so maybe that's the difference.
Oh, there you go. That is the difference. Yeah, you are Australian after all.
I do like cold weather. So,
but anyway, the book is written optimistically about the process, although it admits that there was no way of reviving a frozen body yet. Still isn't. The book was released shortly before Disney was diagnosed and died of cancer, meaning he could have possibly known about the idea of cryonics.
64, the book was written and released, so that would have been 2 years or 1 year. 1966,
2 years.
Wasn't it, when he died?
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, 2 years. Okay, so 2 years, yeah. I imagine a book called The Prospect of Immortality would have been pretty, widespread at the time. That would have been interesting. I assume Disney would have heard of it.
All the theory really needs to do is establish that the idea existed before he died, right?
Which it did, yeah.
Which it does.
Which it did.
The book was released shortly before Disney was diagnosed and died of cancer, meaning he could have known about it. There's a rumor about a journalist from an old newspaper, the National Spotlight, who claimed to sneak into St. Joseph Hospital, where Disney was being treated at the time. The journalist said he snuck into a storage room where he saw a cryogenic cylinder with the frozen Walt Disney inside. Although this guy just casually sneaking into hospitals as like a side gig.
It's probably easy to sneak into a hospital if you've got the correct disguise.
Yeah, but what kind of journalist is like, honey, I think it's Tuesday. I think the hospital unloads their bodies today. I'm going to go take a look, see if I can find something.
You're making this journalist sound like a very nice guy, but what in my head, I'm picturing like a TMZ journalist.
Well, the guy,
they don't have honeys to talk to at home.
Unironically, this is the 1966 equivalent of TMZ.
Yes, tabloid journalism, like the people who made Diane crash in the French Tunnel. Like, it's not unbelievable to think that it's a slimy journalist who would have snuck through the hospital sewers to spy on Walt Disney.
Although this story floats around the internet, there's no proof that the journalist ever even existed. The first body to be frozen happened in 1966, although they had been embalmed for 2 months already. Suspended.
Wait, what? Embalmed means like all your insides are removed, right?
Yep.
Well, that's going to make the resurrection a bit harder. Right?
They'll cure that. They'll figure that one out.
They've just got a skin suit on ice. What's the point of that? There's no point to that.
This woman is still unidentified, and in an article on web archives from Allcar called Suspension Failures, they regard the change from freezing for cosmetic purposes to cryonics, saying in regards to this patient, quote, CryoCare did not use cryoprotectants or perfusion with their patients, but only did straight freezes to liquid nitrogen temperature. These freezings were advertised as being for cosmetic purposes rather than eventual reanimation.
I don't like the terminology they use, like reanimation, like we're fucking.
I mean, that's what it is.
Freddy's characters.
That's what it is.
I mean, it is.
Deanimated, then reanimated. Yeah.
Yeah, but use resurrection or something. That sounds slightly.
Nah, I'm gonna make it worse. I'm gonna say it's black magic. It's zombies.
Also, just real quick, they talked about what was it? Perfusion. That's when they freeze the insides of you. Like they inject the stuff into your body to freeze it from the inside out. Basically, straight freeze. I'm pretty sure is just they stick you in the material basically to freeze you.
Mm-hmm. Their first case in April of 1966 was the first instance of a human being frozen, with at least some thoughts of the cryonics premise of eventual reanimation, though conditions were adverse and prospects discouraging, as was admitted.
Okay, so 1966, that would have been before Walt Disney died.
Yeah, it's the year he died, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was possible for him to be frozen upon death. I think that much is true. Likely, it sounds like there were other cases where cryogenic or cryotic, I think, what was it called? Cryonic cases had been taken in the months leading up to his death. So is it possible that he could have been frozen? Yes.
In 1967, a month after Disney's death, a man named James Bedford, who was an American psychology professor, was cryogenically frozen after passing away from cancer and remains still frozen today. He resides in the Alcor Life Extension Foundation in Arizona.
Actually, I've got the ick now. Now that I'm thinking about it. That guy's been in there for 60 years.
Yeah, get him out, Jackson. It's fine.
I can resurrect him. I'll give him heart compressions.
There you go. That'll do it. We'll cure death. We will be God.
Easy. It's so it is a bit ick to think that there's just this building in Arizona somewhere with a bunch of vats of frozen bodies.
No, it's great, Jackson. We're gonna cure them. They'll be better. Bedford was injected with 15% dimethyl sulfoxide and 85% Ringer solution. The issue with these chemicals being used is the uncertainty how it may impact his possible future recovery and how his brain is possibly affected. You know, if we ever resurrect anyone, they're going to be like mindless animals coming out of it.
Yeah. Like they're going to be so brain broken from. I mean, life isn't meant to be treated that way, right? Is there any cases of like animals being frozen and then reanimated? I'm pretty sure there's like some animals that are able to suspend themselves.
Well, yes, but it's different because like when animals are frozen, they come back. Like there's one species of fish that I think like every year its main cycle gets frozen. And then comes back. But it's never
worms,
like
maybe.
they're dead. They're always in like a hibernation.
Yes.
There's a big difference in your body system slowing and your brain not working anymore.
Well, plus, like we're talking about evolutionary adjustments to their physiology that have made it possible and such, which you can't directly correlate that to humans. Otherwise, we would be making arguments that we'd be able to like cut off our heads and still operate like chickens do, like how they're able to operate without their heads for a bit. Like it's obviously not one-to-one, but it's just interesting that that does exist in nature or has existed in nature.
Mm-hmm. Around 600 people worldwide are currently cryogenically frozen, with thousands with their names down to be frozen when they die. How does that make you feel, Jackson?
I'm going to add my name to that list.
Okay.
How much does it cost, though?
We're going to get to there, but there's currently no known way to bring them back. The Alcor Foundation offers memberships ranging from $17 to $100 a month, or life insurance from $25 to $800 a month. To receive whole body cryopreservation, they require a minimum of $220,000. Or just the brain is a minimum of $80,000. Wait, you can pay to have them rip your brain out and put it on ice
and just freeze it. To be fair, that's not a bad. If you're shopping for a saving, that's not a bad idea, because I think the idea of uploading our brain consciousness to
that's a great idea. That is a great idea. What if we take our whole brain and we rip it out? And then we put it. Could you imagine if we did pull that out? Like you right now, you die, and then you blink, and you're 200 years later in a different body. I'm sure that'll have no adverse effects.
No.
You know, I said a minute ago that religious people don't have problems with it. I do now. Thinking about this right now, immediately burn it, get rid of it, throw it away.
What if you're just put in a computer, though? It's not even another body. You're just in a program.
Okay, all that put your brain in a computer stuff is just making a copy of you. You're still there. You're just uploading personality for like other people to talk to, I guess.
What if, all right,
there's no way to put a soul, like a mental like comprehension into a machine.
Have you heard of the idea that when you go to sleep, you're making a new copy of yourself basically when you wake up?
That
you're not the same person you
might
were
be
when
the
you went
dumbest
to
thing
sleep.
I've ever heard.
I mean, that's what I've heard. I've seen that discussed.
What do you mean you make a copy of yourself when you wake up?
Well, how can you know that you're still the same person?
So every night you die and then a clone takes over?
Yeah. Well,
did a crack addict out, did just like someone shooting up meth tell you this in like a subway?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't know because you've been asleep. Like you have no recollection of what happened in between. And the idea of your spirit or your consciousness is so abstract. It could be entirely different.
I'm just going to keep reading. They also
keep going.
They also offer.
So you can't beat it with facts and logic. So you just got to move on.
You're right. I don't need facts and logic to say I'm going to walk into that cryonics room with a shotgun and just shoot all the bodies. See if they can cure buckshot.
What if the power goes out? Like there's a blackout.
I'm sure it has. You know what they 100% would do? That people would melt and decompose and they'd throw their bodies away, and then they would be like, "No, they're still there." Well, you can't open it because they're frozen. You can't look at them.
You can't go in there. It'll
disrupt
disrupt the freezing process. Yeah.
What's the name of this place? Alcor Foundations. Let me look at how they have.
Yeah, Alcor Life Extension Foundation.
That would be the grift. If you said you were freezing bodies and then you throw them out,
you were just burning them,
and you just have like storage lockers with like temperature, like thermometers attached to them, and you're like, "Yep, they're cooking in there," and there's nothing.
I mean, they're freezing in there,
empty warehouse.
Not cooking.
Yeah. Life.
That would be the greatest grift, yeah, because you don't even have to pay upkeep
if
anymore.
I can't
you don't
see
have to
the
pay
bodies,
for the
if the pictures are just like shut vaults, these I'm looking at their
well, I've always seen them
right
portrayed with like the little windows on the front so that you can see Walt Disney's face.
These look like pub alcohol brewers, like the big silver.
Like
What's the
vats?
word I'm thinking? Yeah, the vats. There's a word for them.
Barrel.
A barrel, whatever. Yeah, it looks like those. It looks like I'm at one of those like breweries that have the big vats where they have like, oh, flavor of the week or whatever. There's no one in there. They're making beer and getting high and laughing about it.
Wow, yeah, there is absolutely no windows. There's just a
no
little like
there's no
thermometer.
proof of body
There's a thermometer gauge on the front, which doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything.
I want to see people in there like like frozen with like their hands up trying to get out. Like, then I'll believe it. But until then,
It does look like one of the things that a magician would try to escape out of, like an escape artist trick.
mhm.
If they're chained up in
They
there.
like load them in from the top and like seal it.
Yeah.
It also says that they offer pet freezings ranging from $29,000 to $123,000 for a full body straight freeze. Yep, this is insane. Well, Sparky has to suffer the consequences of my sins and trifling God with me.
Why? Could you not just take one of your pets into the vat with you? Why do they need to charge extra for it? Just hold it while you get frozen.
I don't think they just drop you in there then fill it full of ice or liquid nitrogen. You're probably hooked up to like a mask and stuff like that, I'd imagine. Actually, no,
they
you're
just
not, because
dump you
there's
into
nothing
cold
in there.
water.
There's beer in there. There's nothing in there. It's empty.
Frozen in beer. I am imagining them just dumping you into cold water, basically like an ice bath. That's my idea of cryonics.
Yeah, that'd be funny if you told people you're doing it, then you just dump a naked body into a tub of ice. Like, they're good. That'll be fine.
They're frozen.
That'll do it. No
good
need
enough.
to thank me. There are rumors that a family member of Disney's was on the Alcor mailing list, although I cannot find exactly who this has or may have been. That's how all this is going to be. It's like, well, someone said this happened, but there's no evidence. Someone said this thing happened, there's no evidence. One of the reasons...
That's an urban myth for you. Like, one of the classic urban myth traits is like, this person said this one time.
I saw this once. Can't confirm, but I did. I saw it. Just like you saying you heard. What was the thing you said you heard? That every night you die, a clone of you wakes up.
Change consciousness.
Yeah, the exact same thing you did, yeah.
Yeah, me saying that is enough proof. That's all the proof I'll ever need.
One of the reasons the story of Disney being frozen began to blow up in public memory was when it was first published in a French magazine, Ici Paris, in 1969, written a few years after Disney died. They said they got the information from a group of Disney animators who were privately joking about Walt having frozen himself.
That's definitely how this all started.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, a
1,000,000%.
bunch of animators at Disney, like joking about their boss's death, basically. Like, yeah, that guy totally froze himself. And then that got reported by Ici Paris. And then it just spread from there across the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
100%.
Ici Paris. The story had been that a reporter had broken into the hospital where Walt was staying, disguised as an orderly, where he discovered Walt's suspended body in a cryogenic metal cylinder. The theories then naturally expanded from that general idea from then, once it attached itself to the public as an urban legend. Yeah. Some believe Disney as a whole is frozen, while others believe a branch of theory that it was just his brain that was frozen. I've also heard just his head, like floating in a vat.
Yeah, both. Kind of like Futurama, right?
Yes, same idea.
Yeah.
Some believe that Walt Disney's fascination with audio animatronic figures at the 1964 World's Fair stemmed from him uploading his brain into the animatronics eventually. Ooh.
Oh, that is like Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah. That's the sound. That's what Walt Disney sounded like.
That's terrifying. I don't like that idea.
That journalist was in the hospital and he's in a dark closet. Like, I don't think anyone's here. And then Freddy's eyes light up behind him. And you can hear like the music pop.
But it's Walt Disney's face. Yep. Yeah. Imagine, he's stuck in this like animatronics body and you can't communicate or anything. You're just consciousness trapped in like a pizzeria animatronic. Yeah, you would go crazy. You would absolutely go crazy very quickly, like you said.
There have been biographies released that claim Disney was interested in the idea of cryogenics, such as Disney's World by Robert Mosley in 1986, and Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince by Mark Elliott, 1993. Both books portray Disney in a more dark, unflattering light. The books painted Disney to be anxious about death, and they both also talk about Disney wanting to be frozen so he could be brought back to life and with enough energy to get back into work and possibly correct any mistakes around Epcot that those after his death made.
You know, Disney would absolutely freeze himself just to fix Epcot eventually.
Of course, yeah.
He loved Epcot.
Anything he was into a bajillion %. No joke.
Yeah.
Like, all the time.
I mean, he was, like you said, he was literally working on his deathbed.
Mm-hmm. These books were written long after the French article, which seemed to be the progenitor of the rumor. His interest while there's like a bunch of books you can find that talk about the idea that he was frozen, they all stem from like the same source, which is just conjecture of some French magazine basically saying, we heard some animators saying that he was frozen. That's it. His interest in science and innovation, as seen in his projects like what Epcot was going to be, a futuristic city, or Tomorrowland, could mean he wanted to come back after being frozen for a long time to see what the future was like. He was clearly very interested in the future as a concept.
I mean, yeah, or he could have just not wanted to die.
Yeah.
Like both are possible.
That's also true.
Yeah. You don't really need like an elaborate motive behind his potential reasonings behind being frozen.
This next point's my favorite, I think. In his last recorded video, An Evening with Walt Disney, before his death, he signed off by saying, "I hope to see you soon." Obvious proof that he was planning to beat death and find immortality to the truthers.
So people point to that specifically as proof that he was planning to freeze himself.
That would be really funny if like there's a theater showing of it and he's like, "I hope to see you soon." Then he rips through the screen in like a mech outfit.
He's just saying goodbye. That's not proof. See you later. Well, obviously, he's
see you on
back.
The flip side. Yeah. Disney's cancer being kept out of the press. And then when that'd be really funny. So at like someone's funeral, there's like a little video of them like, "I'll see you soon," and then their body gets thrown through the screen, like just flips forward. I've talked about how funny it would be to have like an air compressor underneath someone at a funeral, like under their chest. So they randomly like just shoot up in the coffin, then go back down. Like
that's what I want my funeral to be like. I want to have
but it's on a random timer, so no one knows when it's going to hit.
Oh. No one can know what's going to happen at all.
And you don't know when it's going to be enough to rip my top half off my lower half and make it a really hard time for everyone there.
Enough force to send you into the ceiling.
Yeah. I just get mauled, just eviscerated. Disney's cancer had been kept out of the press, and then when Disney passed away, his death wasn't announced to the public for several hours, which people point to as proof he was quickly being moved to the chamber.
How is that? That's not proof. See, all right, this is what happened, right? The animators made that theory or whatever. They made that joke, and then that magazine picked it up, and then everyone has done their hardest to like pick apart like things that have happened to fit that idea, basically. Or they look at every single detail, as most urban legends do. They look at every single detail through the the lens that it was true, so they need to make this fit. Of course, what do you think is going to happen when he dies? Like, obviously they're not going to immediately alert the public. They need to make time to like tell family members and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't understand how that's a point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, it's your proof, just like the journalist who doesn't exist. Like, it's evidence that the body was being moved to the chamber. When Disney originally went to the hospital to undergo a surgery on his lung, the media were told that he was going in for an old neck injury, keeping the true nature of the admission a secret. People point to this as proof as well that something bigger was happening, other than the dying part.
Maybe he just didn't want you to know he was dying.
The lie they made to make up the disease was actually a secret double lie to set up the machines. Disney's funeral wasn't announced until after it had happened, which was a small ceremony at the Little Church of Flowers in the Forest Lawn Cemetery, Glendale, where his ashes rest. It took place the day after his death, on the 16th of December.
What? Oh man, they didn't invite me to his funeral. He must be frozen underneath the Pirates of the Caribbean.
It was an empty coffin with a bomb, with a grenade in it.
With free merch.
Free merch, yeah. If I die, I want to have like my body holding a map. So when someone inevitably graves robs me, I'm holding a sign that's like, ye seek the treasure. Yeah.
Yeah, go to this point to get Wendigoon merch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one merch. It's like, well, dang it.
People, I agree though. You've got the right ideas, Isaiah. You want your body flown up into the air during your funeral.
I just want
treasure
something
hunts.
mauling to happen to me, something cutesy.
Yeah. I mean, the funeral shouldn't be a depressing thing. Let's have some fun with it. Let's bring fun back to funerals.
Of the hand grenade. Which, to be clear.
Okay, well, that's less fun.
For you, maybe. If you're digging up the grave.
For
me, it's love.
I thought you just wanted to put fun back in funerals. I was on your side until
It's going to be fun for someone. It's going to be a real careful funeral if I've got a grenade with the pin pulled up under my back while I'm laying in the casket. Those pallbearers are going to be real careful moving me around.
Not to set it off.
Yep. The hearse hits a bump. Just boom.
Yeah, explodes. Any kind of tilt.
You see them hit a speed bump a little too fast and they open the doors and roll out of the car.
You've got the Hurt Locker squad needing to be the pallbearers.
There was secrecy around this, with those who worked at the ceremony not disclosing any details about the funeral or what happened to Walt Disney's body. Only saying the following statement: Mr. Disney's wishes were very specific and had been spelled out in great detail. What his wishes were has been kept quiet and not released to the public. His funeral had no attendees from the Disney studios either.
I guess you're not owed any privacy in death as soon as there's an accusation that you're frozen your body.
Of course not.
As soon as that theory's around, you need to know the details of the funeral. Obviously, it's a private affair. He's not going to have a giant public thing. Also, is the assumption there that the cemetery would have been the one freezing his body too? Because they're saying that the people at the cemetery won't tell them what happened.
Yes. Or it was a fake funeral or something. Because the actual body was being rolled away. Yeah, something like that.
The other body's somewhere else. Gotcha.
Yeah. While his death certificate confirms his cremation, there are no photos of his body post-death. There's a theory that
because it's a pile of ashes, right? By that point. I guess like they could have taken photos of him in the hospital bed dead.
Yeah, and on the way there and stuff like that. Yeah. There is a theory that the movie Frozen was created and or named Frozen, so that when you Google Disney Frozen, it comes up with the movie and not the conspiracy theory. The same concept can be applied to Disney on Ice, the touring ice show that features popular Disney characters.
All right, I wasn't sure until now, but now I'm on board.
I agree.
They absolutely are hiding something.
Definitely makes sense. I like the idea of someone like when Frozen came out, 2016 or something. I like the idea of someone like watching the movie and being like, "Oh my gosh, I know why." Or they're more accurately, they're at home trying to Google and Frozen keeps coming up. They're like, "They've done it. Those sons of guns.
Why can't I find the conspiracy theory anymore?"
And that blocks
every time I look it up.
Down,
yeah. Like Disney it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I like the idea.
I'm sold.
Frozen was actually originally called the Snow Queen and was later renamed for unknown reasons. It is a dumb name. That's why it was changed.
Yeah, that's why I could tell you the unknown reason. It was because the Snow Queen sucks. That's a dumb title.
Lame. Get it out of here. One of the movie posters literally features the character's heads just popping out of the snow. Coincidence? See below, which people have taken out to be a hint that Disney's head's in ice. Need I say more? The middle one of him actually holding up his head, of Olaf holding up his own head, is actually an image of Walt Disney doing that because he ripped off his own head and put it in there as an affront to God.
So the idea that they've frozen his head, his entire body is still in there. It's just his head is decapitated and he's holding it up in the frozen tube.
Yes, that's what I think. If I was Disney, I'd be frozen, but I'd make like a scary face and hide it somewhere in the park so like kids turn a corner and then like cry. That'd be great.
Give the audience at home your best scary face. What does that look like?
I don't like I don't know, like a mean face.
Wah.
Wah. Wah. Yeah, I make a Wario noise. The rumor has persisted and expanded since his death, even going so far into the 90s. The Disney employees spread stories about Disney's so-called Big Freeze. These stories made their way into books and articles, like Walt Disney's biography, which made them spread even faster through the public. Now it's referenced constantly in pop culture.
Now they're going to need to make a movie called Disney's Big Freeze, so that whenever I search up Big Freeze or Walt Disney's Big Freeze,
just make more and more convoluted theories, like the Disney Icebox questionnaire thing or whatever. It's like,
yeah, and then if they brought out a movie. If they brought out a movie called The Icebox Questionnaire, then I'd start to actually think, why are they hiding this?
What are they hiding up? What are they covering up? Yeah.
Every time I try to Google something, they make a movie about it. It's so annoying. All right, so the obvious question then is, if Disney's body was frozen, where is it now? Because all of the big cryonics companies have denied any involvement in the freezing of his body. The most popular theory is that Walt Disney's body is actually kept beneath the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Disneyland, California. Why? And this is all the logic you really need, because the ride was built about 2 months after he died. So obviously, that's enough proof for me. That's obviously where they're going to put his body. Because, that makes sense. You want it at the theme park.
That's where I'd put it. I'd put it in the, you put it in the money bag box, like I said.
You know, if he actually did freeze himself, I could see him putting his body on display, but it would be at like Epcot or something, I would think. Like somewhere where his body could serve as an idea of what the future would be like, because I think that's in line with what he wanted. So I could see, if he did freeze himself, I could see it actually being, weirdly enough, an exhibition at like Epcot. But underneath Pirates of the Caribbean, no. And this is why I don't believe the idea as well, is because if he did freeze himself, he was such a technologist that I think he would have wanted it known. I don't see why there's any reason for it to be secret.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just my take. It's not just the Pirates of the Caribbean ride where Disney's body is said to be kept. People also talk specifically about a bunch of tunnels underneath Disneyland, and this is what you were talking about before, right? They've got tunnels all over these places. They're called the Utilidor system. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so like one of the reasons Disney built them originally is because he didn't like that if a worker had to go from one place to another, like you could be in Tomorrowland but see a cowboy from a different thing walk over and it killed the vibe. And also sometimes mascots would have trouble getting through the park because fans would keep trying to talk to them. So there's tunnels everywhere, so that as soon as a worker needs to leave, they can just go down into the tunnel to get from one part of the park to the other.
Yeah, these aren't a conspiracy theory. These tunnels actually do exist, but they're more real, like logistical in nature. They're not like the back rooms or whatever. They're like an actual...
If you're lame.
Well, they could be the back rooms. They could be. But yeah, they exist and they're used for, like you said, logistical purposes, like moving trash and stuff. I've seen like videos of people exploring them and stuff. They're pretty boring and banal. They're just to kind of keep the idea of the magic within the park alive so that you don't see janitors moving trash bags around a lot. Makes sense. Not really proof that Disney's down there frozen. And then also people specifically believe that his body may be inside the spaceship Earth sphere at Epcot. But again, I don't see why they would hide his body in a theme park ride when he could be in the centerpiece, like, you know, in the middle of a fountain display, basically in the middle of Epcot, which is what I think he would probably do if he did freeze himself. All right. Now it's time for you to do your favorite thing, Isaiah. Debunk this very hard to debunk theory.
Is this section Nina? All right. Yes, it's possible that Disney heard about being cryogenically frozen, but it's equally possible they never heard about it. Her daughter herself has said that she doesn't believe he had ever heard of it.
Yeah, but she's bought out by Bob Iger and the Disney Corporation.
Exactly. I don't. She doesn't even. Her dad's an ice bucket. She doesn't know. You know what he's about.
Yeah, he didn't tell. He didn't tell his own daughter and family that he's going to freeze himself.
The books, Disney World and Walt Disney, Hollywood's Dark Prince, have received harsh criticism from the Disney family, and claims are often heavily disputed. Many do not see the book as a credible source, and the claims themselves come from unreliable sources and secondhand stories. Who would have thought? Not me.
Yeah, crazy.
Disney probably wanted to deal with his cancer privately, which is why it was a fairly secretive topic. There could have been many reasons why. He may have wanted to keep a happy public persona, and he may have wanted it to not affect the mood of the parks. Disney's death did take hours to reach the press and then the public, but this is not as strange as it seems. Firstly, his family and close business associates would have been made aware, allowing them a moment's privacy to grieve and begin the funeral and cremation preparations. The press didn't know he was dying either, as they believed he was at the hospital for the neck injury. In her book, The Story of Walt Disney, Disney's daughter Diane wrote, "He never goes to a funeral if he can help it. If he had to go to one, it plunges him into a reverie which lasts for hours after he's home. Such times," he says, "when I'm dead, I don't want a funeral. I want people to remember me alive." So Walt Disney did not like funerals and did not want one for himself, which explains the secrecy around his own, how small it was as well, and why it was quickly conducted the day after his death.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The president of the California Cryogenic Society, Bob Nelson, gave an interview in 1972 and responded to the rumors about Walt Disney, saying, "The truth is, Walt missed out. He never specified in writing, and when he died, the family didn't go for it. They had him cremated. I personally have seen his ashes.
Oh.
They're in Forest Lawn. 2 weeks later, we froze the first man."
No, he just missed out. See, I do think that he would have froze himself if given the chance.
No, I don't think he was that insane.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think it takes
he's
a special
he's dead
kind
anyway.
of person to freeze yourself. I mean,
But he was such a big fan of the future. Like, if it was anyone else, any other
there's a
businessman
difference
at the
in being
time,
a friend of the future and being like, I want to throw my body into the ether. I fear eternity. I face the today, like whatever, the temporalist mindset of it.
the uncertainty of it would be too much for any person, realistically.
Of the freezing? Well, I think the uncertainty of eternity, of the afterlife, is also a lot for a lot of people. I think it's two different beasts, but I don't know. I don't see. I think there's a reason that this concept is as well known as it is, freezing bodies, and there's only how many people did it say are currently frozen?
Yeah, like 1,000.
Yeah, I think that speaks for itself.
It's in its thousands. Yeah.
Yeah. However, Bob Nelson did add fuel to the fire by continuing to explain that Walt did want to be frozen, and they had numerous discussions about before his death, with Walt asking questions about the process.
Okay, well then, I mean, that adds, yeah, I mean, I was right then. He did want to be frozen, right?
Well, he asked questions about it. They had discussions.
If Bob Nelson is trustworthy, I mean, he was the president of the California Cryogenic Society, so I'm not going to act like he was incredibly unbiased. He's probably
this sounds like the most unbiased person I've ever heard of. I think that the guy who the
makes
best
money off freezing
got,
people.
I think the guy whose entire life is freezing people, who starts a sentence about Walt not being frozen as, "Truth is, Walt missed out." I think that's a trust guy. Yeah. Unbiased party. It is interesting how this conspiracy theory has grown throughout the years. Researching online, many confess that they believe that Disney was frozen, either his whole body or just his head, or was the first person to be frozen, with certainty due to other people speaking as if it were true until they did further research. It seems to be a widely believed theory.
I don't know about widely, but there are definitely people online, like I've seen it, like people actively been like, wait, Disney wasn't frozen? Like
the mentally ill and memers. I'm going to say that's the two.
No, they're not. They're actual people. Because
there's been told who might believe he's frozen because they were told, like, yeah, he got frozen. It's like, okay, sure.
I mean, if you're a kid and you're told, like, Walt Disney was frozen.
Yeah, it's fine that he's frozen.
Figure.
I'm saying the conspiracy about him being frozen and under Disneyland and like all that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, people have clearly been frozen, so it's not unbelievable to just, if you hear it, be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you're telling me, I trust you.
It's not impossible
I believe
information. Yeah.
And that's how it spreads. You start telling other people that, like you're drunk at a bar or whatever, and you're like, yeah, did you know Disney's frozen?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, no way.
Clearly.
Sick. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. And that's how it spreads. You don't really need any evidence because it's not like unbelievably unrealistic or whatever. Like it's on the ground level, like you could believe it being told by a trusted person. Yep. But not true. There's no proof of him being frozen. In fact, there's more proof through his death certificate and things like that of him being cremated after his death. So that does seem to be the most likely outcome.
Yeah, and his own daughter said, quote, "There is absolutely no truth to the rumor that my father, Walt Disney, wished to be frozen. I doubt that my father had ever heard of cryonics." So you can trust the guy whose entire business is cryonics. You can trust his daughter as to what. It's up to you. Know what? It's a 50-50. It's a coin flip, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's up to you. It's either Diane Disney or Bob Nelson. Let's put them in a debate and see them.
Let's watch them fight.
Let's
see who wins.
Yeah. Well, how old would Diane Disney be now? Maybe she's frozen.
Oh, see, maybe she was just trying to throw us off her scent.
Oh, yeah. She died like 10 years ago. Yeah. Maybe she is frozen.
Maybe if you dug up his grave, it'd be her frozen. You know?
Yeah, she's in his grave.
Really mess with you.
All right. So that's going to do it for this episode. Isaiah, you have been a very busy boy these last few days, cranking out videos. So you're obviously very tired. It's like 10 p.m. there, right?
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. right now.
Big thank you for showing up and putting on the show with me. Do you want to shout out your video? Let people know.
I just released the PetScott video. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with it by now, everyone. As soon as I accidentally announced it on Creepcast, everyone has constantly been messaging me about it, but it's out now, so you can quit. You can grow up. But yep, content's up now. Be sure to check it out. Also, merch drop. Merch plug. Merch is dropped right now, so get in on that. Wendigoon.shop if you're interested.
There you go.
And I believe, that's pretty much it.
Are you wearing it right now? Do you have it to show off? Or
I've got the clothes are somewhere else. I've got this guy. He's part of the merch drop. This little squonk plush. This weird little plush guy. He's part of it. A little disgusting.
Go check it out. It'll be linked below as per usual. So go check that out, the merch drop, as well as the video. Big thank you to everyone for watching and supporting us. Tell a friend. Let people know. Also on audio platforms, so you can head on over there. We tried a new format this week, just bullet points instead of a full script.
Right. You said it right. Points. Bullet points.
I don't think we could have made a script out of this one anyway, because it was so fucking stupid ultimately. So that's probably a good one to test this on. Let us know what you think, if you prefer more scripted or more kind of shooting from the hip, taking bullet points and just kind of talking about shit. Let us know what you prefer. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. And catch you in the next one. And be careful about falling into vats of freezers or Walt Disney's booby-trapped grave. Bye.
Yeah, don't go grave digging.
Unless you really want to.